short recap. In the premiere of The Galaxy Plan, the idyllic world of Wind faced collapse due to technological failure and natural catastrophes, prompting a desperate space exodus. In the turmoil, the cruise ship, composed of 3 elongated metal tiers, roamed the cosmos with a fateful destination, a solemn refuge for the dying remnants of Wind society. Millennia later, spectral beings Jari and Zila discovered this floating tomb, exploring its silent halls to piece together humanity's story. On Faun, healer Chorus sensed an ominous storm signaling profound change, while young Sami, injured and isolated, confronted the echoes of his potential lives in a mystic haven. As the storm intensified, Coriz headed to Ango's farm to warn the highland inhabitants of the impending danger. Welcome to Ephemeral Eyes. Welcome back to the Galaxy Plan. Please consider leaving a like or subscription to support the channel. It would mean the world to me. If you haven't caught the opening episode yet, make sure to click right here. This is episode 2, Through the Shattered Dome. As the storm raged on Faun, Chorus made the farm of the cattle breeders Ango to set up a warning message for the people of the High Plain. Coriz hurried through the last stretch of his journey to the Angos, faster than he'd anticipated due to the unexpectedly early and heavy rainfall. Moving with a youthful agility, he navigated the forest that cradled the Ango Farm from the north, effortlessly avoiding natural obstacles. The wildlife, startled by his swift passage, could only flee too late, their usual alarm zones easily breached by the Elder's swift advance. An agitated tree bear, disoriented by the storm's approach, reacted violently as Chorus neared, its powerful claws tearing trees asunder in a futile attempt to deter the perceived threat. Yet, Chorus, with a dancer's grace, evaded the bear's desperate swings, continuing his mission undeterred. Upon reaching the farm, Chorus found Yogu coordinating the community's efforts to fortify their homes against the storm. Each member contributed according to their abilities. Yogu was the oldest on the farm, second only to her husband. She and Chorus had shared a lifetime together since their childhood days. In a tender moment, they embraced and gazed deeply into each other's eyes, their connection unspoken yet profound. Chorus, Yogu noted. She was currently helping her son Kona and others as they barricaded the doors and windows of the main house from the inside. The old man entered and took a careful look at each person in the house. It's reassuring to see you and your family in good health. I'm glad to see you've taken steps to secure the farm. I urge you to ignite the large winter warning fire without delay and ensure it's amply fueled. A severe chill is approaching. Yogu's tired eyes widened as she tried to calm her heart with deep breaths. Chorus, what did you see? Chorus had the eyes of a whale. His calm radiated outward and Yogu gasped for breath. I must go on. There's still something I have to do before the storm changes the face of the landscape. Chorus nodded in thanks and left the farm without goodbye. Everyone in the room immediately took action. 10 people, including Yogu's son Kona, worked with all their might to erect the metal rods and prevent the lightning from reaching any of the houses. They used all materials they could find to barricade their longhouse, and even used the long metal rods from the Ango well as additional lightning catchers. Then came the rain, with a force that questioned everything the Angos ever had to deal with before. The first discharges came shortly after the rain. The beds and groves near the buildings were partially shifted or washed away. Unpaved areas or stone floors were completely submerged within moments. The stone roofs of the houses scattered and misted the cold-bringing water in all directions. The skies unleashed such a deluge that 2 farmhands caught in their path to the house were overwhelmed and pinned to the ground by the sheer force of the rainfall. Kona, seeing their plight, tossed them a lifeline which they grasped and used to drag themselves to the safety of the house. The scene was chaotic and awe-inspiring. The house's walls shuddered as the storm's rumble and roar engulfed everything, leaving everyone rooted in place with fear. The lightning strikes, felt vividly and near despite the house's sturdy stone walls, were a formidable display of nature's power. The penetrating cold was held at bay only by the warmth of the large winter fire blazing at the room's heart. The beacon's fire was drowned. It wasn't easy, but Cora's found traces the boy had left behind and followed them. The temperature was dropping rapidly, and his calm exhales fogged into mist since the moment he left the farm with a set of ice gear. He felt massive pressure differences on the plateau. These high and low pressure zones were moving. He felt them as a swimmer feels the sea's waves. Long after sunset, Cora's traced the boy's tracks on the field's smooth ice, now a brown expanse shaped by the floodwaters. Frost created upheavals, like infinite fields of sweet pie crust. The boy was seemingly surprised by the storm, running straight to the outskirts of the drainage ditch. The overflowed field had swallowed a large part of the meadow. The smooth, light brown sea was hard as stone. Places on the ice that had cooled faster than the ground below rose like small, edgy reliefs, pushed up by the pressure of the warmer layers underneath. Bathed in the gentle glow of his oil lamp, Coras took in the scene before him. The ground was sheathed in ice, occasionally crackling underfoot in the enveloping darkness. The field, trees, and the steadfast blades of grass were enveloped in a hushed reverence. In the distance, he encountered an eerie array of figures half buried in the earth. He paused, offering a silent prayer for the souls entwined in their frozen tableau, arms reaching skyward, legs and faces emerging from the ice. Scattered among them were the relics of carts and beasts of burden, encapsulated in frost. Strangers to him, their attire and belongings hinted at a desperate exodus, perhaps from peril or in search of sanctuary. Caught off guard by the tempest, they were ensnared by the frost while tending to their wagons in the flooded plain. And the boy, could he have been bound for this ill-fated assembly? Was he left behind? Among the silent figures, the boy was nowhere to be found. Coras was certain there was only one refuge that could have shielded the child from the sudden, freezing onslaught. The canal's bed was encased in ice. Trailing it downstream, Coras reached a towering wall at the edge of the ancient water reservoir, a place deeply etched in his childhood memories. He had delved into and studied this age-old underground maze extensively as a boy and young man. Its core was a perfectly rounded cavity, worn by the exposure to the elements, possibly dating back millions of years. Tales of the dome were plentiful. Some even hailed it as the last abode of ancient deities, while others believed it possessed mystical qualities, though Coras could neither affirm nor refute such claims. Memories of feeling oddly altered for days after visiting this site lingered from his youth, leaving him restless and feeling constrained by his mortal nature. There were those who claimed to have encountered spectral figures within its confines, experiences so profound they felt momentarily transported to a divine realm. Coras, in his explorations, discovered little more than faint inscriptions and the inexplicably warm waters within, encountering neither phantoms nor deities. Yet, each visit left him with the impression of a subtle, indescribable pulsation, a sensation he could not articulate, but never forgot. He stood over the opening of the dome atop the hill and looked down into the darkness. The starless sky made it hard to see anything in the cave below. Then something happened that he had never experienced before, but had been told about by many with conviction. For a moment, the ancient stone cathedral was illuminated, briefly exposing the grandeur of its interior structures. Then it went dark again. Coras dropped on a ledge beneath the opening and crouched, shuffling into a narrow tunnel. A sharp tremor sent Coras tumbling as he navigated a dark, trembling tunnel towards a familiar large cave. He remained on his hands and knees until the shaking stopped. Meanwhile, heavy snow began to fall outside, blanketing the landscape in a serene glow. The chill of the night relented just enough for the snowflakes to swell, covering the frozen earth in a quiet layer. Feeling the calm, Coras rose and pushed forward, slightly bent, into the colder depths below the rocky surface. Even wrapped in thick winter gear, he shivered to keep his muscles from stiffening. As the darkness deepened, Coras moved more cautiously. He now depended on the faint sensations his ears, nose, and skin picked up to find his way through the tunnels. A soft echo hinted at the vast stone cathedral ahead, a place he recalled from past explorations. Guided by the subtle warmth of air drifting from the grand hall, he made his way further down, tracing the air's path back towards the light. A faint blue radiance, reminiscent of fine veins, wove through the tunnel's depths, growing more pronounced as Korres ventured further. He instinctively deviated from his initial route, drawn by these luminous trails to their source. Ahead, the entrance to the immense dome blurred into view, resembling a pane of glass veiled in mist. The boy was sleeping on a rock at the bottom of the cave when a slight tremor woke him up. The water's surface lashed against the stone walls, splashing Sami. He opened his eyes, tried to get his bearings, and groaned as his ribs restricted his breathing. It was so dark around him that he couldn't make out anything. Sami's leg throbbed with pain, and he could no longer move it. Despite the pain in his chest and his immobilized leg, he was calm and focused. He tried to turn onto his side, but had to stop. With some effort, he managed to gather enough sand with his head to lie slightly higher than his spine, which eased the dizziness somewhat. He was very worried about his family, and imagined how they might have sheltered from the cold and the lightning. He knew more, but wouldn't admit it to himself. Something was off. Korres could see the opening in the wall, but it made no sense. There was none of the usual airflow that such an opening would have, nor could he feel the vibrations and sound waves from the vast space beyond. He walked up to the vague edge of the opening and closed his eyes. He removed his sturdy gloves and exposed his forearms by rolling up his sleeves. Immediately, he felt the hairs on his arms move in a way that confirmed the contradiction of what he perceived as reality. He was facing an illusion, something he knew from stories. Korres had to regulate his heart rate. An impossible symmetry unfolded in all the vibrations around him, with almost no sound waves and neither smell nor taste of air. For the first time in his conscious life, he couldn't rely on his senses. And for the first time in a long while, he felt nervous. He looked around, and nothing had changed. He had to actively regulate his heart rate again. He could make out the edges of the tunnel, and he saw the enormous, spherical hall. Yet, what he sensed around him didn't match up, leaving him with a confusing, abstract feeling of the space. Trying to understand this mismatch made him feel dizzy, as if floating, so he closed his eyes to focus. Suddenly, gravity shifted. Korres steadied himself against the wall. The center of gravity shifted from beneath his feet to behind him, tilting the tunnel as if the horizon itself had rotated to where he stood. Korres fell back, sat down, and kept his eyes closed, searching within the confines of his body for clues. He struggled to calculate his chances of survival and had to regulate his pulse. And the pattern of the many vibrations changed, reacting to his closed eyes, becoming much more complex and outlining the dimensions of an enormous, spherical space, at the center of which he now seemed to sit. Warmth slowly engulfed him. He opened his eyes. Something tugged at his inner ear and caused a pronounced dizziness. It was like falling and being lifted at the same time. Korres fought against the overwhelming urge to vomit and lie down. The clues led him to conclude that he must have left his physical form the moment gravity shifted. He opened his eyes and looked at the space he was sitting in, dreaming, his body nothing but a projection of the physical object that must still be in the tunnel at the entrance to the hall. Then he could feel his body again for very brief intervals of time. Whatever was behind the mechanism that brought him into this reality wasn't strong enough to maintain the illusion. Perhaps it was too old. He consciously thought of the boy, the reason for his presence. Visually, he still saw the vast white space, diffuse twilight surrounding him. Then the construct collapsed back to simple patterns until he felt he was back in the abstract space that made no sense from before. But his eyes still perceived the mighty dome as it might have looked ages ago. Absolute silence, not even the purring of his veins. He saw the boy lying on the ground 100 steps ahead, unconscious. Korres got up and walked towards the boy in a dreamlike state, puzzled, for most senses still rendered the abstract entrance room of the simulation. Then he saw a figure in the corner of his eye and stopped. A replica of himself stood next to him. It was an almost exact copy, but minor differences in the texture of the skin, the length of the hair, and the beard made the appearance an enigma. It wasn't a reflection. It was a derivation, a different iteration of himself. The two looked at each other and then at the boy. There stood 5 more slightly different versions of Korres, looking at the boy, and then around to the other variations. When Korres approached the boy, the illusion started to fall apart. More versions of Korres appeared briefly, just as the white dome's facade began to flicker, revealing the true, aged and weathered structure underneath, as seen from Korres' physical eyes. Korres then knelt beside the boy and gently placed his hand on the boy's forehead. As soon as he touched him, the boy melted away, along with the rest of the flawless mirage. The transition was so seamless and natural that he was intoxicated by the physical world around him. He sensed his body, untouched and unchanged. He had to find the boy here in the tangible reality. Korres, steadying his breath, ventured deeper into the shadowy expanse. The air, thick with the scent of forgotten epics, as he navigated through the rubble of a civilization that once thrived within these walls. He felt that these were not the builders, though. Meanwhile, Sami, roused from unconsciousness by the eerie silence, found himself enveloped in the dim twilight of the vast cavern. Pain coursed through his body with every shallow breath, the cold stone beneath offering no comfort. Desperate for warmth, shivering in the overwhelming expanse of the cave that seemed to swallow his small form whole. Suddenly, a pulsating light burst forth from the core of the structure, bathing the entire cavern in an ethereal glow. Korres halted as the ancient relic he believed dead came to life once more. Its walls throbbed with a radiant energy that defied Korres' understanding. The light, intense and all-consuming, overloaded his senses, casting long-forgotten runes and carvings into stark relief against the shadows. Sami, too, was captivated by the brilliance that seemed to banish the cold. For a moment, the pain seemed to ebb, replaced by a sense of wonder at the magic unfurling around him. In the aftermath of the blinding eruption of light, Korres stood shocked, his senses besieged. His vision swirled with kaleidoscopic fractures, each shard a fleeting glimpse of eras long past, from the birth of the stone around him to its imminent demise. Sounds bombarded him in discordant echoes, a symphony of the dome's ancient whispers, and the groans of its impending collapse, as if the very fabric of time was crumbling in his ears. The air was thick with the scent of millennia, a pungent mix of primordial earth and the sharp tang of fractured reality, making each breath a journey through the ages. The ground beneath seemed to sway like the deck of a ship caught in a tempestuous sea, the cold touch of stone intermittently replaced by the searing heat of ancient fires, the center of gravity continuously shifting ever so slightly. As he reached out, the textures around him morphed under his fingertips, from the smooth wear of wind-carved rock to the jagged edges of time-torn rifts. The taste of the air was metallic, filled with the essence of ancient rains and the dust of stars, a reminder of the cosmic dance that led to this singular moment. Korres found himself adrift in this maelstrom of sensations, each one a beacon of the relentless march of time, its beauty and terror intertwined. Outside, the world lay in frozen silence, the landscape a stark contrast to the vibrant spectacle unfolding beneath the earth. Half swallowed by a cliff, the ancient stone relic, a beacon in the night, pulsed with life once more, its energy reverberating through the ground. Then, with a violent quake, the once majestic dome began to collapse, stone crumbling and dust filling the air. The rumble went on for some time, varying in intensity. Then it ebbed away suddenly. As the last of the light faded and the echoes of the collapse died away, the frozen world above stood silent, a solemn witness to the secrets of the dome and its inhabitants sealed beneath stone. In the serene expanse of her living quarters, nestled within the intricate web of the orbital ring, Kurit is often found in the company of her son, a bright-eyed young boy named Robotic. As a copy artist, she possesses a rare and profound talent, capable of replicating complex objects and organisms with a precision that verges on the miraculous. Her specialty, however, is not advertised. Instead, she presents herself as a simple storefront cloner, focusing on pets and basic human organs for medical purposes. This choice of disguise is no accident. It is a carefully curated aspect of her life, designed to keep her under the radar of the world government and the prying eyes of those who would seek to exploit her skills for their own ends. One evening, as the artificial lights of the habitat ring mimicked the soft twilight of a sunset, Kurit and Robotic share a quiet moment. Robotic, engrossed in a complex puzzle, displays an intuition and understanding far beyond his years. Kurit watches him with a mixture of pride and a poignant sense of secrecy, fully aware that the boy before her is loved as deeply as any son could be. Their interaction is a delicate dance of normalcy, with Kurit carefully guiding and nurturing Rodic's talents while guarding the truth of his origins. As they sit together, the vastness of space stretching out beyond their window, Kurit is reminded of the fragile balance she maintains, not just in her profession, but in the very essence of her family. For her, as a mother, control was the unseen thread weaving through all. In the vicinity of a gas giant lies an orbital ring habitat named Garden, featuring sprawling continents along its structure. This ring buzzes with the glow of countless fusion-powered spacecraft, reminiscent of a bustling swarm of distant insects in constant motion. Hope you found pleasure in the second installment of my tale, a narrative that spans countless worlds across the vast expanse of time. Hope to see you again, friend.